Good morning. It is a cold, is my breath condensing? Nearly. A cold January morning. Quite a lot happened since the last little update I did. Kind of the story so far. I'd got this one riff, like high bass organ riff, which just was a bit different and felt interesting. And from that, I felt like, okay, now I can see how I can actually do a cover of this so well-known track in a way that's a little bit distinctive. Shall I do the thing? I'll do the thing. Every track I make, whether or not it's for myself, whether or not I'm doing something for YouTube, whether or not it's for a professional client, I am always trying to do three things. First of all, it needs to be distinctive. There needs to be a reason why this track exists. If there's another track that does the same thing, if it's not distinctive, it doesn't have a reason to exist. So that's crucial. But being distinctive is quite easy. You can just go pick up an instrument and play something totally random. You can just do noise, distinctive noise, and it will not sound like another track, but it won't be any good. And it won't be any good because it isn't coherent. The first thing it needs to be is distinctive. The second thing it needs to be is coherent. In other words, the distinctiveness needs to seem like it actually has a purpose. The third thing is it needs to sound good in a non-intellectual way. You need to want, or I need to want to listen to it for pleasure. If it's a great idea, if it sounds great conceptually, it's like this idea combined with this idea combined with this idea. If it's got a great aesthetic, but I wouldn't actually want to listen to it for pleasure, it's failed as far as I'm concerned. So those are the three things. And I often feel in the creative process that for me, and I think a lot of people get this, there's an initial hurdle that you need to get over where you're slightly feeling around in the dark and then it's like the light switches come on. So I did that organ riff, and then later that day, I thought I'm gonna just add like one little bit to it. And then 2 hours later, I'd kind of fleshed out the whole track. I hadn't recorded all the parts, hadn't recorded even all the kind of draft parts, but I had a sense of how it was going to sound. I can procrastinate actually getting down to doing recording, but it's usually not as hard as I think it's going to be, particularly once I've got over that hurdle. The phrase I use is, this is like the army thing of your training takes over. And it feels like I've now moved from trying different things, seeing what character the track is going to have, to instead getting a to-do list and just filling it with tasks and just ticking them off. That's kind of what I feel like I'm doing. Also, up to this point, I've been using GarageBand on an iPad, but I now feel like I'm at a point where I need to move from this very good drafting software, GarageBand, to the professional software I use, to Logic Pro. And because they're both made by Apple, it's an easy kind of transfer. And here's what I think the personality of the track is going to be. Here's what I think is going to come next. So I've currently got this drum part recorded. I've got the organ part recorded. The organ part needs finishing really, and the drum part needs finishing, but I feel like I know how to do that. I drafted a bass part. I don't want to do keyboard bass because I feel like that's too much of a repetition of the original track. I've got a Fender Strat, the first electric guitar I ever bought, and I use much thicker strings, so it's tuned to a C rather than the normal guitar E. I'm going to use that to do the bass line with an octave pedal. Or at least I'm going to try it and see if it's going to work. I'm going to put down a kind of Nile Rodgers rhythm guitar part, which is what the original track has got, but I feel like I can do that without it feeling too samey. I need something that's going to replicate the horn part. I've kind of done that with the organ, but the organ is, I feel like it needs something else. And I was listening to a track, I can't remember where, and I heard I think it was a Scary Pockets track actually. And I heard this guitar fuzz sound that reminded me of the sort of Ennio Morricone Fistful of Dollars soundtrack stuff, which everyone kind of plunders, but that's because it sounds great. And it did make me think, yeah, I could maybe use that fuzz sound for the horn part. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. If it doesn't work, I'll come up with something else. Then I've got this new harmony pedal, which is still in the box, which I will need to test out. I'm going to try that for backing vocals, and then probably finally I'll do lead vocals. I often like to do lead vocals right at the beginning because you need to get it right and then build everything else around it. But this time I'm going to kick it to the end, and I think it's probably going to take a lot of time to get right. I'm confident about the fact that I can sing it in tune and I can make it sound all right, but it communicates so much personality. I often think of the lead vocal performance as being like the lead performance in a play or a film. You know, it's not the only thing that's important, but it's often the thing that the audience is focusing on, so you need to get it right. So that may take a bit of time.